to the Barrett Family Podcast.
I think it's time for the masses to wake up.
Wake up! Featuring the father of chaos, Jason Barrett.
When they think they got the answers, I change the question.
And the prodigal son, Dylan Barrett.
Your time is up. My time is now.
Now, coming to you live from the Redwood Drive Arena. Say hello to the Barrett family.
Welcome into the third installment of the Barrett Family Podcast alongside the prodigal son, Dylan Barrett. I'm the father of chaos, Jason Barrett, here this week to wrap up RAW and Smackdown from August 1st and 2nd. And as we do each and every week, we're going to start off with RAW. We're not going to do too much time on the Shining Stars and Golden Truth, right?
Exactly.
We're not going to spend much time on Rusev beating Mark Henry for what, the 15th time? Nia Jax squashed Ariel Monroe. Whoopie-doo. Cesaro and Sheamus, they had a good backstage promo, but is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I guess Cesaro's getting a title match from it. That's the only thing notable about it.
You've got Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn, which was a great match, but it ended the way it always does, with Sami Zayn losing, giving a good show, and Rollins looking like he always emerges.
Exactly. That always happens with Rollins now. He seems to always win, and it's actually making me feel like he's a legitimate fighter for once.
Now, there was one guy that I know Dylan was really fired up about, and that would be Evan Anderholm, who debuted against Braun Strowman just like James Ellsworth the week before.
4 words. Match of the night.
What they're doing with Braun Strowman is what they previously did with Rusev, what they previously did with Ryback, have him squash a bunch of people and then eventually bring somebody up to his level.
Not just that, they're doing the same thing with Nia Jax at the moment. They're just having them beat local competitors. I will say one thing, I love the line where his opponent said that he gets $1,000 no matter what, so I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that was good. All right, let's really dive into some of the key, probably the 5 key stories that jumped out to us this week. First, let's start with the smallest of those stories, which was Titus O'Neil defeating Darren Young. Now, if you just look at the match, that's not anything special. However, we did see something take place backstage where Titus was talking junk at Bob Backlund, telling him shut up or he'd shut his trap, and then Darren Young actually attacked Titus O'Neil.
Not just that, right before the match, they had played a promo from before where Titus O'Neil had asked him when Darren Young was ever great. So I feel like we're going to see a Titus O'Neil heel turn. Maybe it's actually going to be good for once instead of that Slater Gator.
I have always thought Titus O'Neil could be a player. If they developed him as a nasty heel, I would love to see him coming out in suits, being just a badass who beats people up. Maybe you play the rich card with him, that he's this rich black dude with a ton of money. But here's the one thing. If you're going to have him go heel, which I do like, you cannot have him doing the I can't stand that walrus scream.
There's one more thing you can't have him be doing anymore. Sure, you can always have him do maybe like the Make-A-Wish, kind of like Stephanie McMahon, but you can't have him bringing families to Orlando, Florida, at Universal Studios. Come spend the day with me and my family.
Unless he's going to beat the hell out of Mickey Mouse, which he doesn't do.
Throws Mickey Mouse into a roller coaster.
All right, so the second small storyline would be Heath Slater trying to get another contract, pressuring Raw officials to sign him. Mick Foley comes out. He's got Jinder Mahal in the ring, introducing, they're going to be the 2MB essentially. And Mick Foley says, I'm going to give a match right now between the two of you guys. One of you get a contract. No surprise that Jinder won the match.
Exactly. I thought it was pretty funny that they brought back Jinder Mahal. I remember seeing that he was signed, so I thought, okay, they're probably going to do something with him and Heath since they used to be technically 3MB with Drew Galloway, or a.k.a. Drew McIntyre.
But here's the question. What are they really going to do with Jinder Mahal?
Job, 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 job.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to go anywhere. All right, so a couple of the other things that jumped out. First, you've got Seth Rollins confronting Finn Balor. I thought Balor had some nice moments in the promo. It ends with Balor hitting Rollins and looking good. But here's the problem. Finn Balor, after winning 2 matches and ultimately becoming the number 1 contender for the Universal title against Seth Rollins, and being put over by Roman Reigns the week before, and having the start of Raw where he's on top of the stage as the 6th entry, Now this week, he has 6 minutes on the total show, and the only time you see him or hear about him is during that one episode with Rollins, which I thought was a mistake.
Not just that, one of those wins he had last week was against Roman Reigns. One of the biggest stars in the company just a couple months ago, Finn Balor beats. And what do the week after he beats him? You just get 6 minutes of TV time where you say a couple lines to Seth Rollins.
Well, and here's the thing. They could have been talking that up, that he beat Roman Reigns in a big way. No vignettes of him. He didn't have a match. There really wasn't any talk outside of his segment. And if he's going to be put over... And look, we saw it when he came out and he's doing his usual, where he throws his arms back and the crowd works with him. That works on the NXT circuit, but this crowd this week was weak.
The only thing I can really take away from Rollins and Balor's segment was the lines Rollins was working in, where he kept saying, I did everything that you've done before, which was really good. But Balor just seemed like to stand there and seem like that little kid standing up against a bully, which WWE probably was going for.
Yeah, well, he's giving him the I'll kick your arse and all the typical stuff, which that's fine. But there needs to be some real animosity going into this. This is supposed to be the main event for the world title on Raw. And I just thought they gave the week away, and that's not something you could be doing when you have Seth Rollins and Finn Balor involved in the main event.
Exactly. Like, you have this headlining your part of the SummerSlam along with SmackDown, and you just give them this much time. I think we had more time with Braun Strowman and, what was his name, Evan Anderhall, than we had with Seth Rollins and Finn Balor.
All right, well, from there were two things Raw did really, really well this week. First, let's talk about the Paul Heyman Brock Lesnar promo. At the end of the night, Paul Heyman is doing what he does best, probably better than anybody in WWE right now, selling the beast, telling people what to expect, and he's telling, Randy Orton, you're not going to hit an RKO on Brock Lesnar. What do you think you're going to do? Come out of nowhere? No way, that's not going to happen. And sure enough, what happened? Randy Orton shocks everyone, comes out of nowhere and hits an RKO on the beast. I just thought that was incredible. Really great way to close out the show.
I loved seeing Orton show up. I remember I was joking with you before saying, imagine if Orton came out in RKO, and as soon as I said it, he hits it. I'm like, the whole entire crowd was dead when he came out. You didn't even, usually you'll see the crowd turn their heads, cheer, like when Rollins came back.
Right.
You saw that? Nothing happened with Orton. The only thing I saw was a video where a guy said, hey, there he is.
It makes you wonder if he was hiding under the ring.
He was. I saw the video. He came out from underneath the ring. A guy had it on camera. And
that's great. See, because usually the guys come through the crowd and you see them, and that's what leads to the anticipation. But the fact that they played it that way was perfect.
I know. You and me replayed it a couple of times just to keep showing each other, like, how the hell did he get there so fast?
All right, so if that's the close of the show, we have to go back to the start of the show because Raw opened up in tremendous fashion. First, Sasha's in the ring cutting her promo. Charlotte interrupts her, and their exchange before we get to Enzo and Jericho complicating things was outstanding. Talk about Charlotte and what she said to Sasha, which got you going.
So what got me started was Charlotte had started off with, it's one thing to bring the boy to prom, it's another to put a ring on the finger. Honey, you're just a one-night stand. I was surprised to see that. I went like, holy crap, they just started that. With Sasha answering back saying, honey, you're Ric Flair's daughter. If it wasn't for a one-night stand, you probably wouldn't be here.
Right, and that was tremendous. A good, powerful line by Charlotte, a great counter by Sasha. So then that leads to quiet. Chris Jericho comes out. He's on fire right now as a heel. Comes in, tells Sasha to shut her mouth. He's referencing, are you the boss of me? Huh? You make my work schedule? And he's being sarcastic and attacking her and telling her essentially she's not in Charlotte's league, saying that Charlotte has done way more than Ric Flair ever did, which was just going to piss off the crowd. And so that leads to Enzo Amore. And when Enzo Amore comes out, there are a few people on TV right now who entertain better than he does.
Exactly. Enzo had a great exchange with Sasha. Charlotte followed up with a great line saying, when it comes to Enzo's love life, there's only one word to describe it. Where Jericho started mocking Cass, where he's like, you want me to spell it out for you?
Yeah, that was good. I did like how he started out with Sasha doing the how you doing? How you doing? And then he said, you're more like a BAUCE, bouse, and I've got that hot sauce. And so, like, it was entertaining. But then Jericho sticks his nose in. He then rips on Jericho's scarf. He hits him with the Bon Jovi line, and then he goes, if I could turn back time, which was hysterical, playing off the DirecTV commercial.
I was really surprised they had actually referenced that commercial. Another thing that Enzo said is, I would distinctly go back and help you from buying that scarf, which I think you just mentioned a little bit, but it was still funny to see. That, like, Sasha, when she had first started her promo, it was but when everyone came out and they just kept playing, it was just magnificent.
Yeah, no, Enzo is so over right now. Anything that guy does on the mic, you're hooked on the television. Obviously, they went into a mixed tag match, but...
There's one thing I want to bring up. After the mixed tag match, I believe Jericho was being on Enzo or something.
Yep.
And Cass came out, and Kevin Owens was on there. He's like, watch out, Jericho. You might want to get out of the ring. That's the big one.
Well, you bring the point up about Owens and what he said on commentary, but then you have that promo backstage where Owens, after Jericho is saying that he's got backup, and, you know, Tom Phillips is asking, well, who is it? He says, Jim and Marvin Luther. And everyone's going, who the hell is Jim and Marvin Luther? And then Kevin Owens has to come out and go, you just made that name up. But don't worry, I got your back. That was pretty good. But also, I know you also, before we wrap up Raw, also want to touch on the New Day because you had some things that you loved about their promo.
So, the New Day, they came out before. Like, we had a little backstage video where they played a fruit in the bag or something, where whoever got the different fruit, they weren't in the match because Gallows and Anderson had told them, no, we don't want someone at ringside. The only thing I want to touch on is that when they were in the ring after their promo, they started putting the banana and oranges together, and then afterwards said too much. All I can say is, penis joke.
All right, well, that's going to take care of Raw. Let's turn our attention now to SmackDown, and you're listening to the Barrett Family Podcast. Dylan and Jason Barrett here. Let's start out talking about some of the key developments and really what mattered on SmackDown. First of all, we got the debut of the American Alpha, and I was extremely pumped up for these guys. I thought they should have been on a week earlier, but they missed that. They look great in the ring, but similar to Balor on Raw. They were there, they did great, but there really was no build-up in a big way.
There's one thing I want to take away from their match. So, like, they just had hyped them up last week, even though they were at the tapings last week. They were fighting the Vaudevillains. Remember when these guys were relevant? Like, this was the team they built up, and then they bring in American Alpha, this new big team that a lot of people really like. Well, let's just have them get squashed.
So, I mean, we're excited that they're there. However, I think SmackDown needs to do a better job of building them.
Well, there's one more thing. There was one more debut we had. Apollo Creed.
Of course, and that's where I'm going next. You talk about Apollo Creed, that's who Daniel Bryan called one of the three participants taking on Kalisto and Baron Corbin for the number one contender spot against The Miz for the IC title. Problem is, his name is Apollo Crews. I've been waiting for somebody to make this mistake, and the best part of it is right after Daniel Bryan said it, I look on Twitter, and everybody is posting pictures of Apollo Creed. Lance Storm even tweeted out, awesome, Carl Weathers is going to be challenging for the IC title, which was great. If they're going to build up Apollo, this is how you do it. You put him in there with The Miz, who's going to help him get over, as he's done for so many. But I thought they made him look good, but I love how Baron Corbin ended things. You know, The Miz comes in after Apollo's won, and he puts down Apollo, but what happens next? Baron Corbin puts down The Miz, and that made him look intimidating.
There's one thing, though, about Baron Corbin. I love his character. A lot of people seem to not like him. The one thing is, they're trying to make him this legitimate big heel. Only thing is, he always loses. He lost last week in the six-pack challenge, which I didn't expect him to win, but then he loses the IC.
Here's the thing, though. If he's losing six-pack challenge, three-man matches, and he's not getting pinned, that's okay, because it can look like he was outside the ring, Kalisto got beat. But if he's getting pinned, like when he lost to Ziggler right away after their, the first month, and then Ziggler won, that's where you don't want him losing, because then he doesn't look as strong.
This is supposed to be a big monster heel, and you just had him getting pinned twice, but luckily, like you pointed out, he wasn't, so.
The next part is Randy Orton. He's fighting Fandango. No one really cares about that match, but yeah, I know you want to dance. You always want to dance when that guy comes out.
He's funny.
And take selfies. and then post them on Instagram.
Don't do that.
Hashtag hot kid.
Hashtag fresh cake.
So Randy Orton is fighting Fandango. We see Brock Lesnar in the crowd. SmackDown security are standing there, but we know it's a matter of time till he hops the rail. And sure enough, Orton hits the RKO on Fandango. He's got his back turned, and what happens? Lesnar gets in there, grabs Orton, hits him with the F5. Now, that's great. They need to do that to make Brock and Randy have their animosity leading into SummerSlam. But I just thought, if you really want to make this great, Randy should have either landed on his feet off the F5, or you had a great idea of him catching him in air in the middle of an F5 with an RKO, because if Orton hits the RKO, see, right now they need Randy Orton to look like Brock Lesnar has no answer for him. Everyone expects Brock Lesnar to beat up Randy Orton at SummerSlam. But right now, they've got to make it look like Randy Orton is the guy with all the solutions, and Brock Lesnar is left with the question. And that's the only thing. I get why they did it, but I would have loved to have seen Orton hit Lesnar, because then Lesnar would have been leaving the ring going, what the hell just happened?
They could be saving something like that for a SummerSlam.
But if it doesn't happen till SummerSlam,
then it's going to take away the shock factor.
You want people going into the pay-per-view going, dude, the last month, Randy Orton has been countering everything Brock Lesnar throws at him, and I think Orton can win. Because right now, if they're just even going into SummerSlam, we're all going to say, yeah, Brock's going to win.
Well, that's how a creative team works. They always do this 50-50 booking, and it never works out.
Think about when Ambrose was fighting Lesnar going into WrestleMania. He had that one night where he gets him, but Lesnar gets him all the time. And what happens? We get to WrestleMania, and Lesnar crushes him.
And the match underperformed as well.
Right, and Lesnar crushed him. So you need people to think Randy Orton can win this match, and you only do that by having Randy Orton get the upper hand on Brock Lesnar a number of times leading into it.
There's one thing I have to point out about that. This is Randy Orton, not Dean Ambrose.
Right. So,
but if they're going to do the 50-50 booking, then we all know Brock Lesnar's going to kill this guy.
But here's the thing. Maybe Brock Lesnar was not willing to put Dean Ambrose over. He doesn't know him as well. But he knows Randy Orton. They've been together in that company for 15 years, on and off. So he's more likely to respect Randy Orton and sell for him, just like he did for Cena, than he is for a guy like Ambrose. It's more about the writing team and what they do. They hit a home run on Monday with Raw. They could have hit another home run if they had made Orton look stronger, but they missed it.
They could have made Orton look great, but didn't really do much justice to Randy Orton. Their own superstar, nonetheless.
Well, here's where they did hit a home run. The AJ Styles John Cena promo was phenomenal. Exactly. I mean, I hate to use a pun there, but it really was.
I just realized the pun.
John Cena was great on his promo. AJ was great with his counters and with his attacks. Ultimately, it leads to them facing off at SummerSlam for the sequel.
Exactly. Well, not the sequel, the trio.
No, see, I'm not going to call it the trio because that was a tag match.
Hey, they still had a fight, man. It counts.
Right, but that's a 3-on-3 match. Give me a 1-on-1. This is the sequel, part 2. AJ is 1-0. You want to say Cena pinned AJ because of the 6-man tag? That's fine, but I'm looking at 1-on-1 matches.
They set up a perfect promo to set up for an even better SummerSlam. Like, this card is going to be sick once we get there.
What was your favorite part of their promo?
My favorite part was how Styles mentioned how stupid the people of Nashville were, even though since TNA, the former company he worked for, is based in Nashville.
Yeah, that was genius.
But I loved the back and forth work a lot. It was really well done. Cena had a lot of great lines.
The best part with Cena is really that he's talking about how much love he has for the WWE and why everyone's always looking ahead of the WWE and what they should do outside of wrestling. He's always looking for, how do I stay involved inside of wrestling? I thought that was really classy.
It was great. And plus, you had mentioned how indie wrestlers and stuff just feel like they want to be the greatest wrestler. And apparently reports were coming out that Daniel Bryan was borderline offended by what Cena was saying. I'm like, seriously?
Daniel Bryan shouldn't, because when Daniel Bryan got let go early in his career by WWE, the first guy to get his back and go to WWE officials and tell them, bring this guy back, was John Cena. And by the way, they're involved with the Bella twins, the two of them. So he should be able to get over that real quick.
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about 2 more key developments from the show. First of all, the way the show started, the promo between Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler, Dolph is trying to say, you and I are like the same guy, and Dean says, no, we're not. I'm a winner. You're a guy who gets close but can't close the deal. You're the guy who wants to steal the show rather than make sure you win no matter what. And it almost seemed like we were sitting there wondering, is Ambrose turning heel in this? Or is he just really trying to provoke something out of Ziggler? I thought that was really, really good.
You see, I want to compare this to Raw. They had the two main people of their World Championship match start to show off with the same kind of idea that Raw did with their two main stars going for the title, but SmackDown did it better. They gave them more time. And Ziggler and Ambrose, God, that was one of the best promos I've ever seen.
Well, how about this? Dean is talking about how he had to work his way up and earn everything. And Dolph, I loved his counter. He goes, really? You had to work your way up? You were part of the Shield, one of the most dominant forces. I was a cheerleader, okay? And that was great because it makes you, oh my God, that's right. He was part of the Spirit Squad. And so he starts taking you through, like, all these developments, and you go, yeah, Ziggler really hasn't had a break.
Exactly. He brought up all these points, like, I've always been overlooked, underrated, everything. I'm surprised he didn't mention being the caddy for Kerwin White, a.k.a. Chavo Guerrero.
Well, look, and so during the rest of the show, they're carrying that theme. You know, it turns out where Ziggler says he's going to fight Bray Wyatt for the number one contendership because Bray attacked him. And everyone's saying, look, you have the title match already. You don't need to do this. And he goes to Daniel and Shane and says, you guys doubt me too. I'm going to prove the whole world wrong tonight, and I'm going to do this. And so that leads to the main event, which is Ziggler and Bray, which was a great match. I'm not happy that Bray loses again because he loses all the time, and he's too good to be losing. However, it was important to get Ziggler over, and I thought the way they did it was great.
What I liked right before the match, they come up to him again, Shane and Daniel, and asked him, are you sure you want to do this? And Dolph Ziggler just told him, screw you, after, which I thought was great. When the promo had first started from before, I was thinking, who is going to turn heel? Because it made you on the edge of your seat. And one thing I have to bring up, after the Bray Wyatt match, the best part of the night, Eric Rowan came back and attacked them.
So we get Rowan. He comes in after the match. Dolph has won. He helps Bray, and it ends with the Wyatt family close the show. We've seen this all the time where the Wyatts close the show, but they lose the match.
Not just that, they'll close the show, look dominant, and then WWE just drops the ball with them. Like, at least they made Bray look dominant after, but they're going to, like I just said, drop the ball.
But here's the thing. I think they've built Ziggler really well the last 2 weeks, which if you look at Raw and SmackDown, the way Ziggler was built the week before was similar to how Finn was built really well, right? You could say they even built Finn better that week. But Dolph did win the six-pack challenge, and he pinned AJ, so it looked good. Now this week, they build Ziggler more, and he looks even stronger, whereas Raw took their foot off the gas with Finn. So that's where, like, right now, they've really built some anticipation with Dean and Dolph, and I hope it continues, because if they can get 2 more weeks of this, it's going to make for a heck of a main event with those two.
They've made Dolph look like a legitimate threat. The way they've booked him is much superior to Raw booking Finn Balor, in my opinion.
Well, and that's going to leave us to one final part of the show. NXT! Speaking of NXT, there's only 2 things we really want to touch on. Your boy, Hideo Itami, finally returned after 77 months away because the guy seemed to be on the shelf for 6 years now?
Well, he doesn't have the John Cena pills where he comes back 3 months in advance.
Maybe he needs to borrow them.
One thing I do want to point out, so Hideo Itami had won his match. The one thing I noticed, the person he beat was Sean Maluta, the Usos' cousin, who just lost his match in the Cruiserweight Classic to Kota Ibushi, who debuted last week.
Well, my favorite part, though, is that Bobby Roode is now in NXT, and his final. And I watched his promo on Twitter. It was awesome. And look, right now, if they want to move forward, which NXT is turning into TNA Part 2, you've got Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, Austin Aries. Right there, 3 of the 4 guys are NXT are TNA. However, you're going to need those caliber talents on that show if you want to keep moving people like Balor to the main roster.
Yeah, because we all know Shinsuke or Samoa Joe is going to be up in the next couple months. Those stars are essential to their brand, because when they kept doing the raids from NXT, they kept taking too many big stars, like when they did the Divas Revolution.
Well, look.
The one thing I wanted to touch on about Bobby Roode, though, was that his gimmick seems to be, like, glorious. I keep seeing that whenever his name pops up with NXT and WWE mention him. I'm thinking, oh, okay, I guess it's going to be sort of maybe like when he first started with TNA. I'm guessing it's what they're shooting for.
He's an incredible talent in the ring. The question I have is, how long is he going to be in NXT? Also, are they going to bring in Eric Young? Because they had brought him in before. We haven't seen him in a while. Makes you think that he's probably not there. However, I would think they need him right now, because at some point, they're going to move Nakamura and Samoa Joe up. And if they're going to do that, and they may even get to the point where they elevate Aries.
I'm just waiting to see how more TNA stars come over, like if they bring back James Storm and Abyss or something.
All right, well, that's going to do it for NXT. Our analysis on Raw, SmackDown, a lot of great developments this week. Compared to the week before, thought it was good, not great. The week before was great. So the challenge for WWE going into SummerSlam the next 2 weeks, replicate what they did 2 weeks ago. But overall, still a lot of great momentum. For the prodigal son, Dylan Barrett, I'm the father of chaos, Jason Barrett. You've been listening to the Barrett Family Podcast.
This has been the Barrett Family Podcast. To hear previous episodes and to interact with the Barrett family, visit our website at dylans.wwefigures.wordpress.com.